Good afternoon. Welcome to the February 19th, 2025 Oldham County Technical Review Committee meeting. It is 1:05 p.m. The meeting's now in session. My name is Ryan Fisher. I'm Director of Oldham County Planning and Development. The purpose of this meeting is to review proposed subdivisions, zoning map amendments, and development plans before they go forward to the Planning Commission if they are required to. This gives local agencies and utility companies, those agencies that are represented here in front of you today, that will provide services the opportunity to review plans, discuss and comment about the accessibility of services, and ensure all aspects of the development plans adhere to zoning and subdivision regulations. This meeting also provides adjoining property owners and concerned citizens in attendance the opportunity to ask technical questions of the applicants or agencies represented before you. We will allow a combined 20 minutes of time for those comments. No testimony in favor or against an application will be taken at this meeting, and no decisions are made at this meeting. So once again, if the general public wants to make comments, those questions need to be technical in nature of either the applicant or the agencies represented here before you. So we have three cases on the agenda today. One of them is a continuation from last month's Technical Review Committee meeting, which is TRC 25-003 for Pine Grove subdivision. That's a preliminary subdivision plan. We have TRC 25-002 for Oldham County Townhomes Phase 2, which is a development plan, and TRC 25-004 for Bishop Place Apartments Phase 2, which is a zoning map amendment and development plan. All of these cases will follow the same format. We'll allow the applicant to come forward and give a brief presentation or overview of their project. The agencies that are represented here before you will provide comments, and we've done our best to any agency that's unable to attend to try to get written correspondence from them about the projects. We will then allow public comment to occur, and once again, we'll provide 20 minutes for that. And then we will close. So with that, we will go with our first case, TRC 25-003 for Pine Grove subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. Mike Swansburg, 117 West Main Street, right here in LaGrange, Kentucky. I'm here on behalf of Triple Springs Partners, LLC, which is the first applicant of three today. I actually be here on the third project as well, just for everyone's benefit, but for purposes of right now, I'm here on behalf of Triple Springs Partners. In addition to myself, we also have Walt Shum and Bob Jones here, the developers on this project, as well as Bob Van Sand, who is the chief engineer in this case. As Mr. Fisher indicated, this is the second time this project has actually been in front of this committee. The first time we actually had a full committee meeting, we talked about the project. We received a lot of great feedback from members of the committee as well as the public. There was actually a concern raised at that point that there might not have been a sufficient amount of notice given to the neighbors prior to the commencement of that committee meeting last time on January 15th. And so in response to that, at the suggestion of the committee, as well as in response to some of the concerns raised by individuals who are adjoining property owners and others within the county, we agreed to have a second meeting for the purpose of talking about this project. And in the interim, the developer in this case, Mr. Shum, actually sent out the notifications as indicating who had attended the meeting, as well as the issues that were raised to the adjoining property owners prior to this meeting here today, so that we could make sure that we were conforming with the express technical requirements of Section 380-1 or 010 of the comprehensive plan in terms of notification. So again, I want to make sure the record reflects, to the extent we can, Mr. Chairman, that the developer in this case has gone back at the request of both the committee and the concerned parties in this case to make sure that we complied with that, and that is also why we're here today. There's not really a whole lot else that we're really going to talk about in terms of this project, at least today, because again, we've had a full meeting on this front. We've received a lot of great feedback, tried to incorporate it the best we can into our plan if there is any changes to be made, but otherwise we don't have any additional proposals necessarily to discuss. Obviously, we're more than happy to answer any questions that might be raised of a technical nature about this project, whether it be from members of the committee or from the public. But again, we don't have anything else necessarily to add in terms of additional commentary or additional changes, anything like that to what has already been proposed and already been discussed in front of this body. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I know you've given 20 minutes, but otherwise, I don't know that, Mr. Van Zandt, if you have anything else to add to that. I think I'm going to return whatever balance of time I have and be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. So with that, we'll move to agency comments, and we'll begin with Anna Barge, our senior planner, and then I'll also allow her to read any comments that she has from other agencies that she's received.
Okay, so I don't have a lot of comments since a lot of these were already addressed since the last meeting. So I just want to clarify that we need to note on the plan which features will remain and which will be removed. And then second, which Matt Toller will talk about, just coordinate with our GIS manager on the naming of the roads. So that is the only two comments from me. And then Charlie Ward from the health department couldn't be here today, but he said that all of my comments from the previous TRC meeting will remain the same. And I just want to review the summary from our meeting minutes so that everyone can hear those. Preliminary soil evaluation was conducted, and findings indicated that the soil in this area was entirely provisionally suitable for conventional subsurfacing discharge septic system. All test holes were more than adequate with suitable soil depth for conventional lateral field installation. And lastly, soil types consist of mainly silty loam to silty clay loam and blocky structure. So that was just what he said last time. He doesn't have any additional comments. And then from Jason Richardson from KYTC, we are awaiting receipt of a traffic impact study for this development to determine whether any highway improvements, i.e. turn lanes, will be necessary. Until that time, we have no other comments on this one. And then from Louisville Water, they said that Louisville Water has infrastructure near the development. The nearest water main is 8 inches. The pressure zone is North Oldham 840. Water main sizing, layout, and supply plans should be coordinated with Louisville Water's Engineering Distribution Extensions Department. And they have some additional comments on their form that water main extension along Highway 329 from Constantine Drive to development entrance will be required to serve the development. Area pressures should not significantly be impacted by the development. And so I'll give you all copies of these when I'm done. I think, yep, and that's the last one that I have.
Thank you. Jim.
Just to be clear, are we treating this as just a continuance, or do you want all comments? Or just all or new?
What I told Anna is if you have any new comments, just feel free to share those.
Okay. Just some new comments. At the last TRC meeting, there were some concerns expressed about karst geology and sinkholes. So I did a little bit more research into looking at the Kentucky Geologic Survey mapping, and unsurprisingly, it was indicated as what's known as an intense karst area. The region to the east and west is the same. And there were 3 mapped sinkholes indicated. They appear to be just north of the proposed development area. But as I think I mentioned at that meeting, there's a requirement in the Oldham County subdivision regulations that mapped sinkholes or sinkholes that are observed shall be placed on the record plat. So ensure you do that at that time. Let's see. Oh, at the previous meeting, there was also a comment about showing the driveways on the opposite side of the street. The current plan doesn't have those, so if you could just add the drives that are on the other side of Kentucky 329 for reference, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you. Matt?
I don't have any other new comments.
All right. Mr. Williams?
So based on how our policy works with planning and zoning, the number of units is 93. That will, based on the new calculation of 0.128 students per unit, would net us 12 students. The serving campus would be Goshen, North Middle, North High. The final available capacity would be 80.18%. When you add in then the other approved camp developments in that campus area, it puts it up to 83.61. So it is adequate to accommodate the number of students generated. So therefore, based on the phasing rate in our agreement with the county, it would be 35 units per year.
Chief?
I have no questions or comments on the project this time.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Smith, it's not in your area, so I won't even ask you if you have any thoughts, sir. Yes.
Mr. Fisher, I can just as a technical matter, in terms of talking, we would assume to incorporate by reference as a technical matter any prior comments that were made at the January meeting as part of our addressing any of those comments as well as the comments today. So I just want to make sure that the record reflected that we're actually agreeable to the idea of incorporating all of those by reference so that it is a comprehensive response as opposed to just today or just the 15th.
All right, thank you. Give them to him afterwards. Yes. All right, with that being said, we'll now allow for the public to comment. So if you do choose to come forward, just simply raise your hand. We'll call you to come forward. Just state your name and address for the record as clearly as you can so that we can get that written down. And then with that being said, we'll go ahead and entertain our first, and we'll start the clock once they get up here. So who would like to go first? Anybody from the public? Yes.
Mark Fackler, 10310 Covered Bridge Road. Just wanted to clarify, Jim, with regard to requirements for any preliminary or determinations on 404 with the stormwater, are you going to require that as part of the
Yeah,
technical
that's correct.
requirements?
So the 404 and the 401 permits you're referring to are the Army Corps and the Division of Water permits. As mentioned at the last TRC, it appears that most of the infrastructure is being laid out to avoid the two blue line streams, jurisdictional waters on the site. However, if during further design it's discovered that any impact is to those streams, then we would require coordination, either permitting or other communication from those agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? No one? Going once? Going twice? All right. With that, so if you received notice and as an adjoining property owner for this case, if and when the applicant decides to move forward to go to the Planning Commission, you will receive notice of that hearing as well as an adjoining property owner. And as always, we will post those notices on our website in the local newspaper for you as well. So with that, we will move to the second case on the docket, and that's TRC 25-002 for the Oldham County Townhomes. Phase 2 for a development plan. And with that, we will have the applicant come forward.
So hands sitting back there. Point to that seat next to you. Point to that seat.
Oh, it's Adobe. What button in Adobe moves something forward?
To move slides, is this on PDF? So you should just scroll. There should be a down arrow there to the, there you go. Whatever you just
Okay,
did worked.
perfect. The wheel works.
All
My
right.
name is Emily Estes, and I'm here from Heritage Engineering, and I'm representing the Sprigler Company for the Oldham County Townhomes. This project is located on Victory Court Lane. We have had Phase 1 development come
I'll
through.
just get you to speak up just a little bit or move that mic a little bit just so you can be a little louder.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. So we already had Phase 1 development come through with 8 townhomes. This project was known as the Oldham County Townhomes. And that is under construction currently. This proposal is for Phase 2 of the Oldham County Townhomes, and that includes 8 additional units as shown here. This is the development plan that we turned in. With this Phase 2, we are including stormwater control, which is a detention basin that will run along the rear of the property, pretty much the full length of Phase 1 and Phase 2. We have been approved for sanitary sewer capacity to tie into the Victory Court extension. And we plan to seek a landscaping variance for this due to the odd shape of the lot. We're running into the landscape LBA right here on this corner. And then in addition, due to the shape of this lot, you can tell we're also encroaching into the setback. So we're also seeking a waiver, a variance on that. And then here are just some pictures of what the townhomes will look like. Although they are under construction, if you want to ride past the site and see what they look like today out there, you can kind of get a feel for it. But this is the renderings. And that is the end.
All right.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you. I do not. We'll let the agencies comment at this point, and we'll begin with John Hine, our Planner 1, who's case manager on this.
I'll just pop up this development plan so we can all talk off the same thing.
All right.
Okay, some of these are fairly minor, but please include a legend on your final plan submission and indicate any areas of steep slopes over 30 degrees or include a notation should none exist in the site plan. Include acreage or square footage in this case in street right-of-way area in the site data. Verify that all locations of utilities have been indicated in the plan. Verify that all easements are noted in the plan. Indicate the location of any substantial trees, those over 24 inches in DBH, diameter at breast height. And if there are none, then just note that in the notes, please. The applicant will need to seek a rear yard setback variance, as you're aware, from the Oldham County Board of Adjustments. And then you'll need to seek a waiver of the perimeter landscape buffer zone requirements from the Oldham County Planning Commission. Please verify and indicate all fire hydrant locations on the plan. And indicate the location and size of your common open space as required. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, a landscape plan will need to be submitted and approved by planning and development staff. That's all I have. Thank you.
Do you have any other comments from any other agencies?
Yes, sorry. Yes, we have received comments from Louisville Water, who's unable to be in attendance, but they have noted that there's infrastructure adequate near the development. This letter doesn't constitute a permit, but you can seek a new service application to obtain the service from Louisville Water. MSD, as you've noted, has capacity in the area as well. So you're good to go there. And then there has been a letter submitted by the community as well that has been entered into our records.
And I'll just make one additional comment so we don't get mixed up on any of the language. So we have variances and waivers we're talking about. Typically, variances are dimensional in nature, and those typically go to the Board of Adjustments. Waivers are requesting a waiver from one of the subdivision rules or regulation that we have so that they don't have to follow that. Those typically go to the Planning Commission. Now, the Planning Commission, according to state law, can hear variances, but I'm fairly certain, 98, 99% certain, that that's only when in regards to a preliminary subdivision plan or a zoning map amendment. So I'm fairly certain that this will have to go to both the Board of Adjustments and the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission for the waiver with the development plan, and then the Board of Adjustments would hear the variance case. So I just want to make sure, because those words, we get mixed up a lot. We use them interchangeably so that everybody understands those terms and who this particular case will go to. Phase 1 did not have to go to any of those bodies because the property was zoned appropriately for what they were putting in, and they weren't asking for any variances and waivers. So this one a little bit different from the Phase 1 because they do have additional requests that they're having to ask for. So I just wanted to clear that up in case there were some questions. With that, we'll go to Jim Silliman.
Okay, so since Phase 1 was less than an acre, of course, at that point, you didn't have to have some of the required permitting. Now that we're looking at a combined development that's greater than an acre, you will be required to obtain the Oldham County Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Permit, as well as a State Division of Water KYR 10 permit. As part of that, the plans show the proposed detention basin. That basin is going to be designed in accordance with all our ordinances. One concern we have is the shallow slope, the flat nature of the area. That detention basin, we would recommend it have a low flow channel, concrete, through to get the water out properly. Additionally, there's a small swale between phases 1 and 2. Just depending on what the slope of that is, that may require the same. I had a question about the Unit 16 encroaching into that LBA, but I think that's been answered with the need for a waiver or variance. Other than that, John will provide you with our review letter that has some more specific items regarding design, but those are the primary notes. Please ask.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
On that stormwater basin, the detention basin, you would like a concrete low flow channel in that? Are you saying that you maybe are not? What if we have infiltration is all I'm thinking.
Oh, well, if it's designed for infiltration and I guess then it's also addressing the water quality, then we just need to see appropriate design calculations for that. Okay. Sure.
Okay. All right.
Right.
And then my other comment about the waiver variance situation, I'm calling the landscape encroachment a variance because we will still provide the plantings that are required. But are you saying that we need to call that landscape a waiver?
Yeah, we would typically refer to that as a waiver, even though you'll be able to maintain that, but you're waiving the regulation, or you're asking to waive the regulation of that landscape buffer area. Even though there is still going to be there, it's very similar to a variance, but it's
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
that's typically what we call it.
All right.
All right, Matt Toller.
I don't have any comments. We'll just continue the addressing sequence on that road.
All right, Mr. Williams.
So based on the 8 in the calculation, that would get us net us potentially 1 student from this development. Serving campus is Harmony Elementary School, North Oldham Middle School, North Oldham High School. So the final, when you add in all the other developments, the final capacity rating is at 84.43, so it is adequate for the district capacity. So it would be granted 35. Obviously, they're only building 8, but it would be granted the 35 as related to the policy.
All right, and Chief Sohan from North Oldham has joined us, the new chief. Thank you.
I've got no comments.
All right, thank you. We'll get you a name tag eventually. Oh, you might. Thank you. With that, we'll have anybody from the public come up, and once again, we'll start the time once somebody comes up, and then just state your name and address for the record. Right here in the green, we'll start with you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kathy Pyle, 1701 Perry Court. I'm an adjoining property owner. My specific questions are around the 50% lot coverage that's required by R4 zoning. Has that been addressed?
You want to answer that?
Sure. Yes, their total proposed square footage based on the plans provided is 20,432 square feet, and the lot acreage is 1.14, I believe. It's over an acre, so they're less than 50%.
They're less than 50. Okay. All right. Thank you. This could be, of course, I'm just going to read this. I'm better at that. Well, thank you for taking the time to consider our technical concerns as presented in the letter that we filed both with this board and our local magistrate as well. I spoke with him. We respectfully request that the committee adhere to the R4 building requirements and appreciate that those were put in place to protect our adjoining property. The specific concerns, and thank you for addressing those, are the 25-foot minimum setback from adjoining properties according to the line or the things that were submitted. They're requesting to build 14 feet from the adjoining property at unit 16, I guess. Has that been addressed?
They're seeking a setback variance.
So
that'll be heard before the Oldham County Board of Adjustments, where a decision will actually be made whether that's granted.
Gotcha. And then I'm assuming that they're also in compliance with all of the other setbacks as approved by R4.
Yes, at this time, yes.
All right, thank you. And as far as the retention basin, today there's standing water on the construction site, and I am on the downflow side of the property, and with this last rain, it's a great exhibit of how the water is running towards our adjoining properties and not properly maintained during the construction process. Has that been addressed, or will that be addressed as well? And I'm not an engineer, so I appreciate any detail you can give me.
It will be addressed, and they should design it to provide the flow to that basin.
Okay.
And then, as we discussed earlier, whether that's releasing or infiltrating into the ground, they'll design that and provide calculations.
Okay. All right. So other than what's listed, and it sounds like, and I appreciate, Ryan, you explaining the difference in these in technical in nature, so thank you. So I guess more for clarification, our next step as property owners would be then to follow the variance path, and you're saying that we will receive a notification that they filed for variances, and we have a different voice to bring up at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. So the variances and the waivers, so both of those, the only people that are required to be notified by law are anybody adjoining.
Okay.
So definitely if there's people that are outside of that want to be notified, you all do your due diligence in notifying how you want to notify people. We will notify that by mail for any adjoiners, but we also post that on our website. Once again, the Oldham area, it's posted. So we try to get it out there in as many of the avenues as we can. So there would be two particular hearings. You would get the Board of Adjustments, which meets the third Thursday of every month. So if they choose to move forward, which I believe they already put their application in. Okay, so today's the filing deadline. That's why it always falls on the same day. So sometimes people do and sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. So those cases would be heard next month. Okay. So you're looking at probably the third Thursday for the Board of Adjustments hearing. And then the Planning Commission is the fourth Tuesday of every month. But once again, you'll get notified of that, and it'll be on the website as well. The only other thing I was going to respond to you is we had talked about the letter. Typically, we don't read those letters out loud at the TRC hearing. We did put that in the record, and that's definitely something you're more than welcome to come back to either of the other hearings and read or submit that, and we'll put it within the staff packet as well. But we did look at that to make sure that it met the 50% lot coverage, and that's just the building, anything within the walls. So I know there was some talk about the driveways and things like that. Now that'll go into like impervious surface, but they're nowhere near that either. So
what is the impervious surface?
So you want to explain that?
Meeting the requirements.
Okay. I don't know that one off the top of my head. The number, is it?
Because I couldn't find it in the documents as well.
For R4, I don't know what the requirement is, but what we would do is when they're submitting their drainage calculations for the basin design, is that they ensure that the added impervious surface is calculated into the runoff, so it's appropriately detained or retained.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I thought looking at those comments, and I know since I'm talking, I'll be lenient on the minutes. But so we looked at most of those comments and tried to address them. Did talk to the PVA about whether or not property values and things are affected by something like this. I don't want to speak for her and telling you, but, pretty much she said if it was a commercial structure of some sort, if it was, something with, that had junk and debris and things around it, that could potentially do that. And a couple of the concerns were parking and things like that. That would obviously become a code enforcement issue, is if that does happen. I think they've kind of taken into account how big those units are and how much parking would be needed. But if parking ever starts to happen on the street, things like that, you definitely can call our office, and that becomes a code enforcement issue as far as a nuisance. Same way as, anybody's house, if they did that or had junk, debris, things of that nature, could become a code enforcement issue. So once again, you're more than welcome to submit that letter again, or we'll read that into the record at the subsequent hearing.
So we have to resubmit every time. So I need to resend all of this letter again for
he's going to be the one handling the case going forward.
Sure.
So he can what he'll do is include that letter in with their staff packet. So they'll actually have that in writing. So, but you all, once again, are more than welcome to come and speak at that hearing as well. So
if I understand the technical of the zoning, they, at this point, if they're allowed to, if the variances are approved and the waivers are approved and they build on this, the remaining land, they would have to do all this again. I mean, and go, because that would take them over, right?
Probably. I don't know if they would ever look at it anymore, because, just looking at the way that property line goes in the back, on whether or not they would ever look at it anymore.
Well, the property owner confronted me and said they plan on building boat storage.
Okay.
There.
Okay. Yeah. So once again, that would be a separate case, a separate development plan that would have to go through another hearing. So.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah.
And for the bus route that comes on the turn, for those of you that have not been down there, it's a privately owned road owned by an individual, not the developers, as we were once told. The curve that's going around that bend, has that been looked at for the units backing out onto that property? Because the driveways, as you can see by the plans, especially phase 2, it's a single drive path to the road that we all ride, that businesses in 3 other communities use for other communities. So they have a driveway and then a single entry.
Right.
They'll be backing out. Where will they turn around? Where will their guests park? There's a lot of questions if you're not down there and looking and living down there. It's hard to depict. I also submitted a video showing someone coming around that curve and how they take the curve wide because there's rocks blocking it, and how would 2 vehicles even get through there? And now you're adding potentially 30 more cars.
Okay. Yeah.
But I understand that goes to the next meeting, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Parking is the next hearing. Street access is the next hearing.
You can ask that question now if you'd like. Yes. Just state your name and address for the record.
My name's Don Mattern. I live at 1640 Victory Court, which is just right behind that subdivision. And I just concerns over having 14 or 15 entrances onto a road that's not very well maintained at this time. I know it's a private road, but having that many entrances onto a road is strictly a safety habit. Parking will be very, very limited, knowing there are 2 or 3 bedroom units. You could have 2 or 3 cars in there, and there is no way there's room for 2 or 3 cars parking in there. So I guess any concerns over the use of the road and how that's going to be used would be of interest.
Okay. Do you want to touch on the encroachment just from the aspect of it being a private road?
Well, and I think, and you've expressed that you understand. It sounds like you understand the challenges that we've been asked about in the past with Victory Lane and the fact that it is not a public road. So the county is limited to what we can do, and it's really, we can't do any repairs on the road. And we've had meetings and discussions with the residents down there on what can be done and how to move forward. And at this time, it's still a private road with dedicated access. As far as the encroachment, we actually would not be granting encroachment permits because, my office issues driveway encroachment permits on public roads. So this would, once it's approved here, they'd just be built on. It's a complicated discussion, but because it's not a public road, we're limited there.
would you ever put that many entrances on a public road in that small space?
Well, it really depends on the road. There are some, I can think of some similar ones. I can't think of the name of the units on Sadler's Mill Road where there are some shared driveways to smaller homes, and really it really goes back or goes towards how much traffic is on the road, and I doubt there's a high volume of traffic on Victory Lane, so that would make it more acceptable.
We have a lot of delivery drivers.
Sure.
So there's actually a lot of traffic, and if the Drift Bar, which they also own, if that
Yeah.
would ever succeed, there would be a lot more traffic.
There's probably 100 units plus a boat dock and marina, so there is quite a bit of traffic.
Yeah, and deliveries is an interesting discussion, because if you've got, say, UPS going down there, you're not going to, I wouldn't think you'd get another UPS driver. They just put another package on one truck. So maybe you're
would
not
think that
increasing.
doesn't
You would think, exactly. I'm not their logistics operator.
Nor
So
am I.
that's another interesting discussion. But again, it's not a public route, so we're limited.
If it becomes public, does that change it once it's already up? There is discussion to try to make that public.
There are discussions. There have been for years.
I know it.
So I don't know that they'll finalize themselves before this is approved, or if it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
My name is James Trimpe. I live at 1664 Victory Court.
Can you spell your last name for us?
Trimpe.
Thank you.
Currently, when there's higher water on the river, there are now 74 boats parked right where this development's going to be. Where are those boats going to go once they build those? How do they, is this little square that's at the end, is that their dream of how they could park 74 boats in there? I mean, you go take a drive down there right now, you're thinking, how are they going to build what they're talking about building when there's a floodwaters? So how does that get addressed?
All right. Do you have any comments maybe from the owner's perspective of what, and you'll need to come up and speak at the mic if you're going to respond, because we have a very big YouTube audience.
Sure. Well, I think they're currently using the property. They're making money off of boat storage right now. I mean, that will be displaced when the townhomes come in. So I do know there are talks of a boat storage facility down the road, but that's not on the table right now. And I don't have any plans regarding that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Going once, going twice. All right. So once again, if you've been notified as an adjoining property owner for this case, when that goes forward to our Board of Adjustments and Planning Commission hearings next month, you will be notified. Typically, we get to those we usually wait till all of our other hearings are done from the month prior. So you're looking at probably the end of February, early March before we start getting those sent out. And I can't guarantee any sort of postal delivery at this time on when that may get to you. So definitely keep track of our website, checking the Oldham era. But our website's probably the first indicator that when that'll be. So
So to confirm, it sounds like this will definitely be on the agenda for
yeah, I believe they've already submitted their applications. So yep, third Thursday of the month and the fourth Tuesday. We'll probably Thank you. All right, this will take us to our third case, which is TRC 25-004 for Bishop Place Apartments Phase 2. And that is for a zoning map amendment and development plan. So we will have Mr. Swansburg come back up for his second visit of the day.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Swansburg, 117 West Main Street, right here in LaGrange, with the firm of Swansburg and Smith. And for this particular proposal, I have the honor and pleasure of representing Bishop Place Apartments, which, as Mr. Chairman has already indicated, is going to be submitting a zoning map amendment as well as a development plan for a phase 2 of some apartment buildings that are already existing off of 146 and Dawkins Lane in LaGrange. And so this is going to take that MSD building that we were talking before, that kind of sitting there and who knows what's going to be done with it. And they're going to take that property and they're going to configure it to have one more unit of apartments on it, just like the ones behind it. And so this is going to be the phase 2 and last, to best of our knowledge at this point, development of that particular project. So I've got, in addition to me today, I've got Billy Delker, who's the developer on this case, and I've got Derek Triplett, who's the mastermind behind the whole project and represents the engineering firm that has designed this particular project as well. So just like everything else in this context, we would be more than happy to answer any questions. I know Derek wants to have any follow-up in terms of actual discussion. There was a resubmittal of the plan to include a different entranceway, to the extent that if you're aware of that, you may just want to touch on that briefly. But otherwise, like I said, we're happy to answer any questions that you all might have. And of course, always welcome any feedback, suggestions, thoughts, et cetera, that this body and anyone in the public might also have. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to Mr. Triplett to follow up with you on from his perspective.
Thanks, Mike. Derek Triplett, Land Design and Development, 503 Washburn Avenue, 40222. The proposal is relatively straightforward. This is a former MSD building on 0.75 acres. It's currently zoned R2A, which wasn't utilized as R2A because it was an office, and so we're requesting a zone change to R4 for 8 additional dwelling units within one building. As far as the revision to the plan that recently was submitted to planning, we are removing the proposed access point to Dawkins Road. We'll just be utilizing the existing access point, that is the shared driveway that currently serves the development. And so utilities are available to the site. We're actually decreasing impervious surface on the property, so stormwater shouldn't be a concern. Like I said, all utilities are available to the site from a sanitary standpoint, whether that is accessed from Dawkins Road or from the existing apartment complex. We're still working through that level of detail. But that's the case in a nutshell. We will be consolidating this property with the remainder of the Bishop Place apartments, and that way it all works together and is consistent from a zoning standpoint across the entire development. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. Thank you.
All right. You good? Okay. I didn't know. I didn't know if you wanted to speak again. All right. We'll start with Anna Barge, our senior planner.
Okay, so the notes that I have is to note the distance setback from the street right-of-way. On the plan, the proposed sanitary sewer and manhole, the legend part of it, I think the ink just ran out when this got printed, so I just wanted to make that note. And then add a symbol. You noted the areas of existing trees on here, but if you'll just add that symbol to the legend. Note if there's any areas of steep slope. Indicate the existing building that's going to be removed, because it just says it's existing building, but it doesn't say that's being removed. And note whether there will be any waivers or variances requested as part of this project. I don't think there will be, but just note that. And then I have 2 address updates on my plan. And then from KYTC, I don't know if y'all have seen these comments, but they had some interesting comments. On this one, we would recommend flipping the site and tying in the access through the first phase of Bishop Place Apartments development with no secondary access to Dawkins, per the edited drawing below, which you'll see when I hand this to you. This recommendation is due to horizontal and vertical curvature on Dawkins that affects site distance. So it kind of sounds like y'all already addressed this, but I'm just going to keep reading. As well as the originally proposed separated entrance for the one building, likely causing confusion for visitors seeking to to visit other buildings in this development. As an added bonus, flipping the site would allow for a little more parking as well. Win-win. We have no other comments at this time. And then LaGrange Utilities Commission said that the only comments they have is to please submit a plan showing the intended connection for water service for review. Please submit a plan showing the intended connection location for sewer service for review. If the old structure is being demolished, the existing sewer connection will need to be capped. And then if the existing water service is being removed, the connection will need to be terminated at the main. So those are the comments that I received.
All right. Mr. Silliman? Oh, did you have a response? Or
I was just going to ask to approach. So I can...
Oh, yes, you can approach the bench. Well, he asked if he could approach. I wanted to. All right, Mr. Silliman.
Mr. Triplett, thank you for explaining or pointing out the impervious area that resolves some comments about detention, about the reduction in impervious, so we don't have to worry about expanding the existing detention basin. We did observe, though, that that basin on the existing site, the Phase 1 site, has not been put in easement yet, so at some point we do need that before, but that's a separate project, right? As Anna mentioned, Jason Richardson with KYTC had some interesting comments. And I think they're further interesting because now with the entrance on Dawkins Lane removed, you're connected to the funeral home driveway, and I'm not aware of a access easement for that. So I think if you're going to put all your parking vehicles through the funeral home existing driveway, we'd want to see an access easement in place with some type of maintenance agreement. If you've got it, we just want to see it. But if not, that should be considered. The other concern would be is now that everyone is, I guess, routed to that existing funeral home driveway, there is a approved development on the other side of the street, the LaGrange Food Mart and a proposed gas station that will have an entrance opposite Dawkins Road. So with more traffic on this existing entrance, now you've got an offset entrance. So I'd like to look at some type of reconfiguration maybe with you on that, just to keep to eliminate those offset entrances. Other than that, this obviously doesn't require a traffic impact study or a traffic assessment, and that's all I have.
Do you want to respond to the access easement part from the funeral home?
So we can do some digging to see if there's an existing agreement in place. That's an existing condition as far as that shared access that currently sits, and the pavement for the drive lane for the funeral home actually is on the subject site. Now this property owner doesn't control the curb cut on Jefferson because it is an off-site situation. So as far as revising any access, that's not this property owner's purview, really. It's a conversation that can be had, but ultimately it's not under the control of this property owner.
Yeah, I was just thinking as where Jason Richardson mentioned flipping this and then being able to use the existing apartments access, then it eliminates the whole question. But I've not been out there in a few days. I'm not sure if grades allow that or
Right.
what how high you're planning on having this building. So
Yes.
that could factor into it.
So we've looked at that. There's a few reasons why we think that's going to be very difficult,
Yeah.
if not just implausible. The topographic relation between one site to another, the utilities that are currently in place that would
Okay.
need to be ripped out, transformers, et cetera, to make that connection. We've got a retaining wall on that backside for the Bishop Place apartment. So it's something we can look into in more detail, but it is something we looked at originally, and I just don't know that it's a feasible connection at that
Sure.
point.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Toller?
I mean, as far as addressing goes, we don't have enough numbers to give because the standard we use now is to just physically address each individual unit. And I don't really want to use Leeson Way like the other part of it. I think it would just be confusing. So we'll have to look at that and figure out what we want to do. This might be a weird case where we just give suite numbers to each individual apartment there and just keep the 700. But it'll just be a little, I don't know, it'll be strange just to have one building. I mean, is there going to be signage out there to say like Bishop Apartments like 2, or is it one, or none, or?
Billy Delker, 4751 Fox Run Road, Buckner, Kentucky. It's a great question. That's part of what I was going to try to clarify. Just to put more clarity on this, as you all are aware, I mean, that building's been vacant pretty much ever since MSD was bought by, or bought Oldham County Sewers. And we've got a sign on it right now, you know, just to show some exposure, if you will, for the leasing opportunities. But our whole point behind doing this was really trying to clean up the corner. And even though when we did it, we knew we were not going to be able to make connectivity, as Derek already pointed out, with all the grade change and the utilities and that kind of thing. We are going to operate it as a part of the Bishop Place Apartments, but it would not bother us to have it. It doesn't have to have a Leeson Way address. I mean, we don't have like an on-site leasing office anyway. It's too small of a project to have that, if you will. So it wouldn't bother us and to have a separate address, or even it's almost going to kind of sort of feel like a disconnected property, but we want the building to, you know, all the color schemes and all that kind of stuff will be the same as what the other part of the project is. So there is that continuity. And that's even part, Jim and I had talked about this with Corey. Part of this also is going to be to make the sidewalk connection that was a part of the first phase, kind of a redesign, if you will, to make it more feasible where, because of the grade change along Dawkins Road there, to where you'll be able to connect through the properties via sidewalk. You just won't be able to have vehicular access. But
I mean, it's something we can talk about and we can just discuss it. I mean, there's only going to be 8 units, so
right. Yeah, however you
we
want
can
to do it,
figure, you know, something out. Other than it'll just be somewhat confusing in the beginning, at least.
Sounds good.
Right. Mr. Williams?
So serving campus is LaGrange, Oldham Middle, Oldham High, as is the original Bishop Place Apartments. My one question, and I didn't see it on the plan. Now I have the little PDF version, and I was trying to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. Size of the apartments, is it 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom?
These are all 2-bedroom.
Okay. So that really won't totally change my calculation. So basically, based on the 8, it would still grant us 1 student. So, and you guys know, based on the apartments and the policies, that it's 75 a year. So I think you're good from the school side of it.
All right. I think we've got 50% of our fire departments represented today in the county, so we'll go down to the last one. LaGrange is here to be represented.
I'll do just like the others. I have no comment. I know what's in place over there. We're not going to need anything.
All right. With that, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody? Yes. And we'll start the 20 minutes when you get up here.
Joelle Kerfoot, 706 West Jefferson in LaGrange, Kentucky.
Can you say your last name for us again real quick?
Yeah, K-E-R Foot, F-O-T. I manage the funeral home and also live at the funeral home, so it's an adjacent property. And all of my concerns and questions are related to the traffic patterns that Jim had brought up with the relation of Jefferson 146 and Dawkins with a high traffic funeral home, and now like 68 between the two phases. No problems with the apartment. We're just really concerned with the gas station across apartments and processions and just visitation, what that would look like. So is there already a traffic study that's been done, or is there one scheduled, or what does that pertain?
There, if I recall correctly, the first phase of the development did not require one because of the traffic on Dawkins, and this one doesn't generate the trips that would require a study by either the county or the state based on our regulations. We can continue communication with Jason Richardson just about and work with the engineer on the offset drive or any of those issues because it does connect to their route. But no, I don't think a traffic study is going to be required by the state, and it's not by ours.
Okay. And then in the drawing that was proposed, it had our driveway listed as an unnamed road. Can anybody clarify?
I think that came up, and I spoke with the gentleman in the audience at our office a few days ago. I think our GIS system shows that it is as an unnamed road for some reason. I mean, it's on private property.
Okay.
It's not a public right of way, so
Okay, we just
it's
wanted
just a
to
line on GIS. I
make
think.
sure that didn't clarify like the part of the easement or anything like that as to how they
No.
were going to connect.
No.
And then I guess from here, what do we do as far as we didn't have the updated pattern to show just using the Hetty Radcliffe entrance versus going in off of Dawkins. I like the idea that they proposed of Dawkins to Dawkins just through the project. But so clarification, how do we move forward to voice concerns with cutting through? Because our safety concerns with people that'll be at visitation, and we already have people that speed around the U, so we don't want to add more vehicles to that. So where do we voice our concerns for that or put them on record?
So this project, if, you know, after today, will go to the planning commission because it is a zoning map amendment. So once again, it's a public hearing. You'll get notified of that as an adjoining property owner. Then it will also have to go to fiscal court. So you'll have 2 more public meetings that you could have the opportunity to come and express those concerns. I would maybe also recommend just talking with the developer about maybe a remedy to that situation if that's something, I don't know, you all are inclined to do. So, but definitely as far as this standpoint goes, there'd be 2 more public meetings that you would have the opportunity to express that concern at.
Okay.
In those 2 meetings, there's actually decisions that are made. So,
Okay.
You know, and you can definitely send an email in or write a letter, and we'll put that into the record
Okay.
if you want.
Okay.
Well, all right. Anything else?
I think that's all I've got.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Nobody? All right. So with that being said, once again, if you receive notice of this hearing, you'll receive notice of any further hearings. And if no one has anything else, we'll stand this meeting adjourned at 2:00. Thank you.